everyone, and thank you for joining me for a Conversations with Kate. I'm delighted today to be chatting with David Hoff, the chair of the Melrose Disability Commission. This is both exciting for me in my current role and also given my previous service on the Board of Aldermen, now Melrose City Councilor, where I was a member of a unanimous board in approving the creation of this commission. And I'm really glad to have seen it stood up under Mayor Broder. And I'm excited to talk today with David about the important work that the commission is leading on. So David, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, you're welcome, Kate. Great to be here.
So why don't we just start out, for those of you who don't know you well, maybe you could give us a sense of your background professionally and how you came into this role of commissioner.
Sure. So I have worked in the field of disability inclusion since 1991. Originally got involved with it doing a direct service role, helping individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities with their employment needs. So really started out like many people who do this work in a professional and a direct service role. And always viewed the role, I have a master's in social work, always viewed the role to this day as part of a larger effort to include folks who often are marginalized. I feel that it's a sort of as part of a larger effort to, folks who've often been ignored, unfortunately, or put to the side. They have a right to be part of our society like everybody else. So that's sort of what drives me in this work. And then since that time, I've changed jobs a few times. I currently work and have worked for many years at an organization called the Institute for Community Inclusion, which is part of the University of Massachusetts, Boston, where I oversee and work on a variety of projects focused on inclusion of individuals with disabilities in the community, mostly focused on employment issues. I also do some work on transportation. And when I say employment, transition from school to adult life, as well as adult services. Some of the work, quite a bit of the work is done here in Massachusetts, but we also do some work nationally. And I've actually done a little bit of international work as well. So kind of on a day-to-day basis, that means writing, presenting, doing policy analysis, working with community programs, working with public agencies on different issues, with the ultimate goal, though, is that people with disabilities will have lives just like everybody else. And the thing about disability is it's a very broad term. It means lots of different conditions. There's lots of different legal definitions. So one thing to always bear in mind when we're thinking about disability, we're talking about a lot of different conditions. We're talking about people with physical conditions where they use a wheelchair, people with sensory disabilities, blind, visually impaired, hard of hearing, deaf, people with intellectual developmental disabilities, where I've spent a lot of my professional life, people with mental health issues, and the list goes on and on, people with chronic illnesses. So it's a very broad category of individuals, and therefore, and obviously has much more impact than many people realize. And there's a great saying in our field that says everybody's only temporarily able-bodied. We're all going to deal with disability likely at some point in our life.
So I'm just so delighted to know more about your background, both in the fact that you've done direct service and then taken that to more of a policy, role as well, never losing sight of sort of the people in the policy. It resonates with me as a former teacher who then went into working in education law and policy, and in the current role that I have. One of my career highlights this past year was obtaining an earmark of $10 million to ensure that students who turned 22 during the pandemic who have special needs, have disabilities, were able to continue the work of transitioning toward adulthood with some additional funding because of those eligibility cliffs in our laws. So this expanded flexibility. So really resonated with me to hear you focusing a lot on that employment piece and, moving from one, life component, time frame to another. So you taking all of that then to your role on the commission, which has been, in existence now for a little less than 2 years. Is that right?
Well, we actually have only been officially, we kind of got formed in the summer of, summer of 2020 is when we actually started being selected by the mayor, approved by the city council. Had our first official meeting in October 2020. So we really are actually, okay, I'm going to get the years mixed up here.
Right, about it.
Like October 2000. No, October 2020. So we have been in really just, we started like after COVID started. So we've always been in COVID mode since the commission started. And so I've been chair of the commission since last May.
Okay.
So, and it's been evolving, getting set up time, but it's really been, we've got a great group of members on the commission who, bring different perspectives. At least half the people on the commission, I can't remember the exact number, but I think 4 out of the 7 have to either self-identify as having a disability themselves or have a family member. So that's really, really important that be part of our constituency, and so that they're representing kind of the day-to-day existence of folks. So so we're making, slowly but surely, we've got a work plan, and we're real excited about the funding we just got in terms of from the Mass Office on Disability.
Right.
Yep.
That's really great. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the new initiative for Melrose to do this audit of its policies and the degree to which the commission is involved in that.
So under the Americans with Disabilities Act, there is a title called Title II, which is about public government access. And so every city and town and municipality in the United States is required to have what's called to conduct a self-evaluation and a transition plan under Title II. The city of Melrose did one in 1996, and that's the last time it's been done. This is a required. So one of the things that when the commission was formed, we originally talked about how do we identify needs, and then as we started looking at this, also became aware. And the Mass Office on Disability, kudos to them, they've been really supportive. They met with us early on. They support all these commissions which exist around the state, but they have an annual grants program to fund various things, including development of the self-evaluation, what's called a transition plan, which is basically a work plan on how to assist a city or town or municipality to become more accessible. So particularly since Melrose had not done one since 1996, there was very serious need to do that. So we applied for the funding in the fall. We led the development of the application with the city. The city was great about working with us and putting it together and getting all the details put together, submitted it. And we were extremely pleased to find out in December, mid-December, that we actually were funded. So it's a $54,000 grant. And through that money, we're going to be hiring a consultant. And that consultant will be doing an evaluation of the city's buildings, its programs, its policies, its regulations in terms of accessibility for people with disabilities. It'll be kind of touring of buildings, touring of facilities, touring of recreation spaces, also looking over policies, and in addition, getting feedback from members of the community in terms of their perspective. So we're real excited by this because, number one, there's a serious need to do it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Our current plan is way out of date.
Right.
But it also will give us as a commission in the city really a plan to move forward, because these transition plans, they're very detailed, and they're not something that you say, okay, we'll get this done in 6 months. I mean, they take years to actually, accomplish everything. You're never there in terms of accessibility, Kate. I mean, it's always a work in progress. I mean,
Sure.
it's always more to do. Things change, things evolve. So, but we're real excited that this will give us a real plan to move forward on. And obviously the city's going to have to take a lot of responsibility in terms of implementation, but we will provide oversight. And we're also going to take a significant role in the actual this of the grant implementation.
Right.
The process. So we're going to have oversight. Obviously the city is going to be responsible for a lot of day-to-day details, but we're going to take a very significant role both with the plan development, but once that's done at the end of June, then it's implementation. So
right. And I was pleased but not surprised to hear that part of that grant implementation will include community feedback and opportunities for people to be involved. Obviously, I believe your own commission meetings are public,
yeah.
So people can come and sort of listen in and learn from you, and maybe then think about ways to support the work or inform it. And so it sounds like this, a similar approach will be used with this audit, which is great.
Yeah, we meet on the second Mondays of the month from 6 to 8. Our meetings currently, like most meetings, are online.
Yes.
And so we're on the city. If you go to the meeting sitting portal, the notice is always there. We would welcome members of the public to come to our meetings. There's always an open comment period at the beginning. We really want stronger citizen involvement. We've been getting our social media off the ground,
Oh, good.
and our Facebook and Instagram and Twitter are easy enough to find in there just through a search. So we welcome people signing up for our social media, but we also really, we're at that stage now. We really, particularly I think this grant will help a lot with that, but really want to get more engaged with the public. We've been doing a lot of logistics and organizing, but as time goes on, I think it's really important that we be really engaged
That's great.
with the folks.
That's really nice to hear. And I think, one thing we'll take from the pandemic as a positive development is this ability to meet people where they are through these virtual meetings. I'm certainly supportive of ensuring that public bodies can continue to incorporate, public participation remotely, for example, and certainly to the degree that there may be people in Melrose who are mobility impaired, having the opportunity to be present at a meeting like yours from the comfort of home is incredibly meaningful.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. So, in addition then to, the work that we've described so far, I'm just curious if there are other things that you would want policymakers, whether at the local level or state level, like I am, or elsewhere, to be mindful of and be considering when we're making decisions about how we ensure inclusivity, how we recognize, neighbors with disabilities. What might be missing from those conversations, or what would you want to reinforce?
I think one thing that's really important is that disability is not something extra or something that you think about afterwards. It needs to be something that's sort of thought about in terms of, okay, we're having a public meeting. Okay, disability needs to be, we need to think about accommodations. And not only, we need to think about ensuring that the disability community is fully included and fully part of the process. So that's probably one thing I would say. And it needs to be, it's more than just complying with the law. It's saying, we welcome you here. We're going to make it easy for you to, first off, we're going to design things so they're universally accessible. So we're going to hopefully reduce the need for accommodations, number one. So that we've thought about a lot of these things ahead of time. You don't have to go all this trouble. But secondly, if you need an accommodation, we're going to be helpful and pleasant about it. And we know how to proceed because we welcome your participation. And we think this is important. It's not the rolling of the eyes or, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this? It's yes, great, we should do this. This is part of what we do. I'd say that's a really, really key piece. And it's really important. The second piece, and there's a saying in the disability community, nothing about us without us. They need to be part of conversations in the community. That it's always making sure that they're included, whatever the topic may be, not just disability specifically, but but anything having to do with for disabilities, they always need to be part of the conversation. I'm a professional in the field. I have several family members with disabilities. I don't self-identify as having a disability. And probably one thing over my time in this field is I've become much more conscious of that and much more thoughtful about that, and have sort of looked myself in the mirror a lot in terms of, am I doing the right thing here? I'm a professional. I bring us hopefully some significant knowledge and expertise to issues, but I'm not in those shoes. I don't know what it's like on a day-to-day basis. And so I have to be humble about that. That's really, really important. So I think that's the other piece that's also important for policymakers and folks to think about. And I think the other thing, just from a more of a thematic way, and we made a lot of progress in this country, but we've got so long to go in terms of people with disabilities want lives just like everybody else. So it's like, and there's this tendency to, we'll do this special program for people with disabilities, something on the side, something separate. And, and a lot of times you have people with very complex needs, and there's sometimes reasons for those things. But every time we do things like that from a policy or practice perspective, why are we doing that? Why are we doing that? And I'll just give you a very concrete example. In the Melrose public schools, I don't know the exact data, but a significant number of students are placed out of district for in special education.
Right.
Sometimes for very good reasons, and their parents want it, whatever. But we should always look at that as, how can we prevent that? These are children who live in the city of Melrose. How can we do everything possible as a school district, as a city, to ensure that every student with a disability is going to school side by side with their peers? And I know there's a lot of complexities there, which we won't get into, but I think we should think of that as a goal in terms of, okay, how are we going to be absolutely as inclusive as possible?
Yes.
In terms of what we do on a day-to-day basis. And every time we, so. Yeah.
I like that. And I think it resonates with me in terms of just the degree of rigor that we should expect of ourselves when we're trying to make a determination between integration versus specialization, essentially. Right. And I, from a teacher perspective, having, been a teacher and being somewhat familiar then with special education law, the idea that we want to default toward integration and as free and open as possible, to your point, and that there are also times where we need to really invest in specialized opportunities that are really attuned to some significant needs of a particular student or a particular neighbor, right?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Well, David, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you and hear a little bit more about the momentum that is building in Melrose, in large part thanks to the commission and you and your colleagues' work on it. I'm just thrilled that you've received some state funding, that'll be used really well in our city in an inclusive process to start to make some real adjustments and improvements in how people navigate Melrose and are involved and supportive of the city.
So and we really, again, feel anybody in the city to feel free to reach out to the commission at any time. We have a web page on the city website, but we can also reach us through social media. So at any time, send us an email, reach us on social media, whatever, come to one of our meetings. We welcome your input. We welcome your involvement. We want to hear from you. We want to hear about the needs. We want to figure out, work collectively as partners with the city government, but the citizens of Melrose to really make, Melrose a kind of a shining example of accessibility and welcoming of folks with disabilities.
Thank you, David. And as you mentioned, the commission meets on the second Monday of each month from 6 to 8 p.m. Agendas and meeting materials are posted online, and there's an opportunity for anyone to attend and provide comment and listen in on the conversation. And so I'm glad to have had an opportunity to converse with you a little bit today. So thank you again for your service to Melrose and your good work. I look forward to continuing to learn from you and think about ways we can partner together.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thanks everyone for listening to Conversations with Kate. Please be well.